on the Thursday afternoon for all the Americans. This is our final best of 5 tonight, and it should be a good one, BO. I still have high hopes for a living that this is going to be a fun one.
Yep, you know, we've had 3 straight series where players have been 3-0, and that just all means that all the great games that we've been denied are going to be in this series right now. So to start it off in the blue for Starlight Twinkle, his name is Cham.
And in the top left side, we're looking at the main base of the man who is looking to win it all this time around. He's been a top contender in the American regions for a while, but he has never gone all the way, even though he got so damn close. Representing Basilisk, this is Trigger.
You talk about Cham here taking the 2-0 and WTL. Yeah, that's fair. But if I'm looking at the series, I don't know all the maps that are going to happen just yet, but being able to open up Golden Aura for map 1, if you're a Protoss player, you don't hate it. You get your third bases fairly easily. You have kind of nice pushing positions where you can have a bunch of stalkers and small chokes. If I'm Trigger here and I'm trying to establish some tempo, I mean, I don't know if this is Trigger's map or Cham's map, but I would assume that this is a good map for Trigger to get started in.
Absolutely. And Trigger did not play Stargate last Sunday. Well, normally I feel like his best PvZ builds come off the back of him opening up with a Stargate. I think he has put a lot of time and effort into his Oracle openers. He got a lot better with it. I know he has studied MaxPax's games very thoroughly, as MaxPax's early game adept Oracle movement, I would say, is second to none. And I was shocked to not see him play any Stargate last weekend. Perhaps he was saving it for this moment. This is a very big series. Trigger often in the past fell victim to Australia once he got very deep in these regionals. Well, Australia is going to have to start off in the lower bracket, so perhaps an extra reason for Trigger to be extra motivated for this best of 5, but I'm sure he didn't need any extra motivation.
Oh, yeah. No. Why would you need any extra motivation here when you're sitting on this opportunity to make a deep run? Now, look, even if he loses here, he's not going to run into Australia round run. He would technically, if he falls to the lower bracket, he would start winning. He would go and play him in round 2. But, it's funny, Roddy, is we try to take a look at this map and this setup that we're going to see, or this series that we're going to get, this PvZ between Trigger and Cham. My gut said that this was going to be like 70-30 Trigger favorite. I think in general, he's very, very good, but I think in part that's just because I don't see Cham all that much. Cham historically over Trigger is 11-6. Legulac thinks this is a 3-1 Cham favors. 70-30, actually 75-25 in favor of Cham.
I'm going to disagree with Legulac there. Even though Cham was very impressive last weekend, and that 2-0 was big, not just for him, but for the team as well. And Starlight Twinkle in the end ended up winning. I'm expecting a very strong Trigger here. All of his moves to be very solid, well thought out. I don't think he's going to take any crazy risk. Now, it is important that you don't start playing overly safe, because then you just kind of start falling behind, right? If your opponent goes extreme one way or the other, if you play it too cautiously, then you just don't get anything done, and the games are going to play out very different than what you normally practice. But I think the Trigger is going to be very sharp in this series, and it will come down already to the first 5-6 minutes. Even if they become a bit repetitive, if we watch a lot of PvZs, early game adept Oracle movement is so incredibly important, and games are just not the same. If you kill 0 drones or you kill 8 drones, they are very different, and pushes that could be scary are not going to be scary at all if you find what you're looking for with these Oracles.
I don't know, Roddy. I don't think you're talking to the right Protoss players. They'll say that, look, I can get 8 drones off the Zerg, and they're still going to run me over. It doesn't make a difference. But you're right, though. Obviously, one of the reasons you open up like this is to get damage done, to really put a lot of pressure on the Zerg. So for now, it's 2 workers going down. Trigger doing a nice job keeping his Oracles away, and it's more than 3 drones going down, because he got an egg, which was a drone that was canceled, and he actually forced double Evo cancel as well. So call it 4.5 drones, 5 drones ish.
Yep. And he didn't lose any adepts yet. The Oracles are still pretty healthy. They will be able to activate Pulsar Beam one more time. Something that MaxPax absolutely loves to do is obviously go with 2 oracles in the third, and then 1 stray oracle goes for success in the main. It's incredibly difficult as a Zerg to have an answer for everything. You have to worry about the adepts, you have to worry about 2 oracles, and sometimes a single oracle. The adept shade is not perfect, but this oracle fight is starting to look pretty damn good as 2 queens will fall, 4 more drones fall, and this is already a very different start to any of the games that these guys had last Sunday. Honestly, the trigger is kind of cooking. I mean, sure, he's down 4 workers, but he's killed 7 drones and 2 queens. Has not lost a single oracle yet. Follow-up is going to be Blink and +1. I don't think you're very surprised by it. I don't think Cham is very surprised by it. But it doesn't mean that Cham can immediately do something right against it. Look at Trigger. He's absolutely flying. Finds 4 more workers for almost nothing.
Trigger, he's gotten 11 drones. He forced double Evo cancel. That's like another drone-ish. He canceled a drone in an egg. That's another drone. He killed 2 queens. That's 6 drones. Math, Roddy, says this is a 20 drone game, 19 drone game that Trigger's killed already. And by the way, this 4th base goes down so close to the adepts that while adepts don't really kill buildings, I don't think this 4th base... Okay, that's a mistake. Never mind. I was going to say, I don't think this 4th base stays up. It will stay up.
Against the adepts, it would. Because the adepts deal negative damage, but you do make a point that if the oracles would start helping out, yeah, then that 4th base could have been a bit of trouble, but 3 adepts without glaives, they're just not going to kill a hatchery. At least he got 2 more workers out of it. I think Trigger is just kind of done with the adepts. They have done what they needed to do. They kept him safe in case Cham would do something weird. He found damage with it, and now he still has the oracles, and he's going to head into the units that he actually wants to battle with. Those are the Blink Stalkers. Now, one thing we do have to mention, as Mapo is showing us, Hydraless Den is done. Roaches and Hydras can actually be really good against just Stalkers and Oracles, but it becomes a lot more complicated once Storm comes online, and Trigger is already chrono boosting the ever-living you-know-what out of Storm.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You talked about how Trigger's been studying MaxPax, figuring all that out, early game movement, whatever, but this is MaxPax. If you close the nameplate and just kind of looked at how he's approaching the game, you know, execution can vary certainly, but if you looked at how just the build order and how he's approaching the game, this is a MaxPax PvZ. You go Blink Stalker, you got Oracles, you get some damage done with Adepts and Oracles on different sides. You want to Blink Stalkers behind that because that's very stable. It lets you get damage done, defend against things. And then you add that Storm very quickly. And generally by the time that these timings, these roach-hydra type of timings that, you know, have become a lot more popular ever since the Bailey nerf, by the time they show up on the other side of the map, you have 3 or 4 Storms. And what is a roach? There's +1, maybe +2 Blink Stalkers behind that, stasis traps in a good position. And yes, absolutely, the Zerg player could win. It's a double army supply game right now for Cham. It's very hard for the Zerg to break that defensive setup, assuming that your Blink is on what it needs to be, assuming that the High Templar, the Storm's going to be ready. And this is a lot. Roddy, this is so many Storms.
Yep, and stasis traps and choke points, right? Because Golden Aura has that very strong defensive 4-base setup. I almost want to ask you, don't you think it's a better idea if Cham just builds an infestation pit and tries to go Hive and go Lurkers? And I know that Lurkers are not the free win unit and Immortals are very good, yada yada, but I think attacking Roaches and Hydras up ramps into this many Storms, even if you're up 60 supply, I don't really see it. But Cham is at least going to try. We have an infestation pit, but he's still going to try to make some magic happen here with all those Roaches and Hydras. But the first Storm is good. The second Storm, bit of a zoning Storm. Storm number 3 and 4, very good as well. 1 High Templar does finally fall, but Cham has already lost a lot of units, and he hasn't really killed a whole lot yet.
No, I mean, he's just got so many Storms. It's like, great, you know, surely they must be gone. I've eaten 5 Storm, but no, there's still more there, Cham, and this is a bit of a problem. Now, actually, the SimCity's working up. Oh, that's a great stasis, my goodness. The SimCity's working against Trigger just a little bit. You know, it's kind of hard for him to get on top of this army on the right side once he gives the position up. So there is that. The Hydras are eventually going to get ready. Trigger's supply is, he's got 1,000. I guess his Warpins maybe aren't available, but he's got a ton of money in the bank here, and the jaws are closing in. The Storms continue to be good. But this army from Cham is just, it continues to move forward. It continues to get what? How is this working?
ate a lot of big storms. I mean, Trigger did lose one High Templar, which could have landed a good storm. We have a battery overcharge. 21 probes have fallen. Trigger is going to try to warp in a few more Zealots, but now it's just Zealots battling Hydras. Cham is going to move these Hydras away from the battery overcharge. Just 2 Immortals remaining. Trigger trying to spend his money with 2 extra robos, but it is working. Sure, we've got a Hive on the way. Sure, we've got a Lurker on the way, but it is Roaches and Hydras coming in from 2 different angles. Through a million stasis traps, a crazy amount of storms attacking into Blinkstalkers. How is it working, Bio? Well, Cham clearly believes in the power of roach-hydra for all the right reasons. I don't think that should have worked. I think Trigger messed up a little bit in the defense there, but kudos to Cham, because that was not easy to get the job done there, and he somehow got the job done.
Yeah, it's funny. I look at this, I'm like, man, I see MaxPax. Dark does this to MaxPax like every time they play, and MaxPax just makes it look easy. And now we see Cham and Trigger. It's like, I don't know if it's a ping thing. I don't know whether it's just relative skill or just the fact that I really think the SimCity was the problem there for Trigger. Those storms are good though. I think the SimCity.
I feel like he shouldn't chase too far. He should kind of stay near the battery. He's got triple robo now, but he's already taken so much economic damage, right? That even if Trigger is able to survive here for a little while longer, it is hard to recover from losing all those gates, those pylons, that nexus, all those workers. The army supplies now are a whole lot closer than they were for a little while. Kudos to Cham, man, because that could have gone so terribly wrong, and he actually turned it into a very successful attack. It's really impressive, because a lot of Zergs would have gone through the Protoss meat grinder there.
Yeah, you know, I think really that SimCity from Trigger was excellent for, say, a Hydraling Bane type of timing. Banelings weren't going to be able to connect easily. You can make that happen, but against all these Hydras that have the long range that they do, you just fight on the other side of the gateways and you couldn't get close. So that was a little bit awkward for now. That was a very, very ambitious fourth Nexus there, Trigger. That's not really going to work out. But now Trigger, okay, so he's down about 40 army supply. Getting this fourth base is pretty hard. If he gets like to 170, 160 supply with Owl, never mind. I was going to say, if he gets like all these Immortals and everything else, can he go march across the map and make something happen? The problem is his third base is massively sieged up. 17 probes are dead. He forces our lurkers away, but he's about to lose everything that he holds dear.
Yeah, even if all these lurkers do get stormed and the Immortals get on top of them, it doesn't really matter. This is just another successful attack by Cham. Beautiful multi-prong by Cham. Cham kept Trigger busy for so long. With what was it, like 6 or 7 Hydras? They were just dancing in and out of range, denying this Nexus, picking up a probe. And while Trigger was finally trying to deal with those Hydras once and for all, Cham is kind of as a bait, put them in range, move them back again, and that's when he grabbed all those lurkers, ran them on top of the third base. And I get what you were saying, Bio. Like, yes, Protoss always has a chance with a strong +3 ground army, Storm, Immortal. Even if they're only on 3 bases and the Zerg is on 4, even 5, you cannot count Protoss out these days. But after losing all those probes at the third as well and more pylons, I want to say that I now think it's impossible, but perhaps we should still never count out Protoss. But it seems very unlikely, doesn't it?
It feels really hard. But Roddy, by the way, as we're just sitting here talking about PvZ, I love that I just have, you know, remember, great voice of the Protoss talking about how, you know, Archon or Immortals are maybe just a little bit too strong. Great, it you know, warms the cockles of my cold dead heart. But for right now, again, Cham's gonna try to get on top of this third base. Do we have detection? We do. So the lurkers actually aren't getting a ton. Immortals in an awkward position, so they're not really knocking those lurkers down just yet. But I mean, we're going to see the base go down. But look at the army supplies here. Trigger 57 to 52. 3 1s just about done. We have like 2 storms available. If he runs across the map right now, he's up 10 army supply, Roddy.
True. But there are 18 Hydras on the production tab. We're going to get a couple of lurkers. There are 3 observers out on the map. I mean, yes, tiny chance. Great Aspire is about to come online as well, though. And Trigger is down to 0 stalkers. And I know that Broodlords are not that scary anymore. They're not as scary as they used to be. We can definitely not call them the GG Lords. But I'm not sure if just a few Archons are going to ever be enough to deal with it. I mean, attacking into spines is scary. I don't know. I understand that on one hand we want to see Trigger send it. On the other hand, I also understand that Trigger is a little bit hesitant, where he's like, I just took a really good fight. Should I throw away my final Immortals? Because if he loses those, it is safe to say that he's never getting those back.
Yeah, that's fair, but it's like, okay, so Trigger, you took a really good fight. You traded extremely cost effectively in that last fight. Great. Absolutely. You can move on the map. You can deny the gold base. You can kill the queen. There we go. But going back, taking your third base, you're sitting here as a 3-base Protoss. Like, what does resetting get you? And her answer is really not a lot, so he's just going to go send it right now. Lurkers are going to have to unburrow, reburrow in range. Broodlords are on the way, 3 of them at a time, and Roddy say Archons don't do enough? But if they can get out of there because there is nothing on the ground, maybe, just maybe here. No storms for the cocoon, certainly not. But there is nothing on the ground anymore.
Stalkers. This is where Trigger just needs a couple of stalkers. Maybe he thinks that he's very far behind, but this game is actually omega close. He's down in workers. He could right-click on this hatchery. Perhaps this is 5 immortals. That kills the hatchery really quick, right? How quick will this hatchery fall? Because Trigger is about to take out that base at 6 o'clock. He gets this one as well. He can move the immortals to the right side. He's got some money in the bank. Does he still have a cyber core? He absolutely has a cyber core. Gets 2 bases. Can we save some of these immortals? Are we going to recall them? Or are we going to try to take out another hatchery? What is happening in this game, BO? Oh my goodness.
I don't know. These immortals are going to... I think you just target the base down there. I understand why he's killing army because it, you know, theoretically keeps you safe from some big counterattack. But man, you put a Zerg down onto 3 hatch with literally... Okay, maybe not 0 income, but, you know, dang near close 0 income. All of a sudden, things look not all that bad now as it stands. He's building immortals here. Absolutely. It's 47 workers to 70, but it's not like the income is all that far off. But he's not building anything to kill the broods.
No, he was saving up some money. I think he was saving for stalkers. Now he's gone for a few more High Templars. There come the first 2 stalkers. And he was also saving up money because he's basically double expending Trigger to this because he lost the 3rd base. He rebuilt it, and then he's like, I've got some money in the bank. Let's just go ahead and go up to 4 bases. Because Cham is obviously very scared of moving to the other side of the map. He's got 75 army supply. I've never seen a Zerg be very confident when they only have 75 army supply and then exposing fragile units like Broodlords. I think that Infestation Pit will live, right? There is creep keeping it alive. This is a banger game where it looked like Trigger was basically dead, but he had a powerful army, and an army with a lot of immortals and Archons and Storm is just so damn effective against the ground army of the Zerg.
All right, Roddy, I opened this game. I said, look, you know, oh, you're going to get up. It's only 2 stalkers. I'm like, he's going to get a Broodlord. 2 stalkers do not kill that enough. Bases are going to have to get canceled. But I opened this game. I'm like, hey, Roddy, you know, we've had 3 3-0s in a row. The games have not been incredible. All that good game energy is just going to be channeled into this series. And I can't promise what's going to happen for the rest of these games. But at least in game 1, I'd argue that is starting to happen.
An absolute banger game where it looked so rough for Cham to make something happen with the roaches and hydras. We can't just ignore the early game where he lost a lot of drones, even lost queens against the oracles. Turned nothing into something, turned something into absolutely amazing, but wasn't quite able to truly get Trigger out of the game. And now it almost feels that we have hit a full reset button where it's like, all right, Trigger is going to take his moment. Cham is going to take a little moment for himself. He's adding in some infestors as well. Even has Neuroparasite on the way. That's maybe a little bit ambitious, but potentially could come into play, right? Still just going to take a little while. This base at the bottom side of the map is going to get denied for the 2nd time within the last minute. But Cham did still have that triangle, and Cham definitely does still have that base at 3 o'clock. Zealots, though, are starting to find a lot of drones. Cham needs to keep an eye on that.
I mean, Roddy, infestors or like fungals just end this game, right? You know, certainly stalkers can theoretically get on top of the, what are we at, 7 broodlords right now. It's 6 stalkers. Not a fungal on the stalkers. You can't fight the broods at that point. We're going up to 12. What is that, 11 broods, 10 broods on the map? Yeah, okay, this is, again, I don't like this from Cham here. You gotta fight with the broods. Yes, getting on top of the 4th base is okay, but now you just lost the last of your lurkers. There's a world where Trigger chases this down. If you just bring your army together, Cham's going up to like 14 broods. And if you just get fungals on top of the stalkers, I don't know how Trigger fights the broods at that point. It's not like he's got Stargates on the way.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't really have money for that either, right? I'm sure that some people were thinking, like, maybe he can sneak in some Void Rays. We do still have that Stargate of the early game. Don't forget about that. So perhaps he could drop a fleet beacon in a little while and then sneak out one Tempest at a time, or try to surprise Cham with a couple Void Rays, even though Void Rays is not something you really want to rely on against Hydras, Fungals, etc. It's just that a lot of Zergs don't really believe in Broodlords anymore. Like, Broodlords don't deal that much damage, Fungal doesn't deal that much damage. If you take a fight and you just get stormed, I mean, if Cham loses his army, he's also donezo, right? So it's not that easy to say, oh, his army is just better, because Trigger's army with +3 attack, I mean, Arcles with +3 attack, complemented by a couple of storms, is pretty insane.
Yeah, that's why I don't like throwing away so much of his army. He didn't get anything. Oh, okay, nice neural on the Archons. You know, this is not an abduct, but it's good enough. The Stalkers are going to go down. These Archons, they're going to get fungal. They're going to go down as well. And this is what we're talking about. It's like Infestors counter everything that Trigger's building to deal with the Broods. If you're able to play Ring Around the Rosie, which I like Trigger trying, sure, great. But eventually you're going to have to get in a point where you can actually take a fight. And as what are we looking at Infestor-wise? Only 4 Infestors, not a lot of gas for Cham, certainly, but if you have to take a fight at a certain point, you have to build yourself up so you can. That is a juicy storm. Maybe a second.
Yeah, you don't often see High Templars get in range to drop a storm on that many Broodlords, but that was pretty awesome. Trigger is so deep, by the way, into the middle of all these bases of Cham with that other army. Not a whole lot of anti-air in this army, but plenty of storms. And if Cham is going to try to move his Hydras on top of this, there is a chance he's going to get stormed. Trigger, is he paying attention? He's not at first. Will drop a couple of big storms towards the end of it, but did already lose 2 High Templars. And we cannot ignore the fact that Trigger is on 65 supply. So even losing just 2 High Templars is a big deal. Army supply, that is.
Yeah, I think you just go. I like Trigger. I understand why Trigger tried to double expand a solid 7 minutes. He was now okay. Well, we have no Fungals. A bunch of Stalkers have warped in. Yes, this 4th base may go down to the Corruptors, but if Stalker, there's just not enough Stalkers because they, maybe they can kill off all the Broods, but Broodlord damage, yeah, Roddy. Broodlord's not as strong as they once were, but their impact damage hasn't changed. And with +2 on top of that, the Stalkers are just falling down. Only +1 armor, no shields. If he had just gone in instead of getting that 4th base, if he'd warped in about 15 Stalkers when the Broodlord count was really slow, I think Trigger might win this game. But as it stands,
take a look at the income advantage. Mafu, can you bring up that beautiful graph if you press 1 on the numpad? Where you can take a look. You don't see that very often, Dio. That's a lot of blue, almost for 10 minutes straight. Which really does go to show that Trigger has put up one hell of a fight from an almost impossible position. But we can also say that he should have never been into that impossible position because he had such a good start. It's just a banger of a first game between these two. But it does seem that Aligalak perhaps is onto something for now. Because I don't think that there is a world where Trigger wins this anymore. He's going to lose that base at 9 o'clock one more time. That's where the Robos are as well. Those get unpowered. And the only thing he has left is a couple of Stalkers that will blink forward one more time. Fungals are going to land, and even if the Brutes fall, I mean, Cham still has income, Cham still has money, should be able to rebuild an army that's powerful enough to clean up these last few Stalkers, 3 Immortals, and an Archon. Right, Bio? Right?
I mean, you say he's got an income. Trigger's going to the north side. He's going where the income is.
Look at all the Hydras and the Lurkers, though. Like,
okay, how many High Templar do we have, right? It's
1.
1. That's like...
And 1 Observer, by the way, and that 1 Observer is now going to go down. Don't forget, we still have 9 Lurkers. We have 1 Observer, and we have 9 Lurkers. Now we have 0 Observers and 9 Lurkers.
Yeah, the first Storm's not really incredible. I mean, it's getting damage done, but the trick is you need Storms to be able to deal with the Lurkers. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. Trigger, 0 gas income, 0 mineral income. Does he have a Robo? No, he doesn't have a Robo, so no way to go build another... He doesn't have the gas for an Oracle. He will have no detection. So I was like, oh, maybe if he kills the base, the income's gone. He can hit some good storms, but with 0 income, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, there is indeed a world where that Archon just lives forever, tanks a lot of damage, and it gets saved. Immortals live up to the name. Storms are picture perfect. That perhaps you could overcome like a 30 or so army supply deficit, but after losing that final Observer, that truly was, I think, the nail in the coffin. Unless Cham just keeps on losing units one by one. Trigger is warping in 4 more Zealots. I guess he's just going to click that on the base in the top right, hoping that Cham left no units behind. And Cham actually did move all of his Lurkers, by the way, so If the Zealots do go for that base in the top right, maybe they can accomplish something. But the final Fungo is going to pin these Immortals in their place, and that will do it. After 25 minutes of video gaming, it is Cham who takes the 1-0 lead after what felt and absolutely was a really bad start. But he made roach-hydra look good, Bio.
Yeah, well, that's always been Cham's MO, right? He's like a mini Dark. He's going to get roaches. He's going to play roach-hydra maybe. He's going to get this aggressive timing base. He loves his roaches. So I'm not surprised that he made roaches look good because it's funny. Cham's hard to pin, right? Because in domestic tournaments, he'll take down special. He'll win the final Latin American regional. He'll do this incredible run. And then you see him go play it like a Katowice, and he has an okay run, but nothing really special. It's kind of hard to get a pin on how exactly good or not good he is. But, you know, in the region, there's a reason the League of Legends says, well, maybe 75% he wins this series. Game 1, though, Roddy, makes up for the last 3 3-0s. That was a banger of a game 1.
I like how they both played a whole lot better after they were in so much trouble. When Cham was in trouble, he pulls off an absolutely miraculous multi-pronged roach-hydra attack into a field of stasis trappies, a bunch of cannons, batteries. I mean, not too many cannons, but there were a cannon or two. Blink stalkers, high templars, like, think like your army can shine there, especially having to go through choke points, upper ramp as well, up 2 ramps even. And then Trigger, when he loses his base and 20 plus probes, and then loses the third base as well, says, all right, now it's time for me to become a god. And he took a couple of great fights and just wiped the floor with those lurkers. Really fun stuff. Amazing start to our final best of 5 of the night. What if he just saved the best for our very, very last series together, Bio?
I choose to believe that happened, and certainly one of the players contributing to what was really a special game number 1. He's playing for Starlight Twinkle. He's up 1. It's Cham.
And what a game it was. It takes 2 players to tango, down 0-1, but he probably still got some confidence out of that game because he had a great start and he had a great couple of fights when he was in an almost impossible position, so there is plenty to be very hopeful of for this man. Down 0-1, representing Basilisk, it is Trigger. The only thing that if I was Trigger would rub me the wrong way though is that I've now lost 3 games in a row against my opponent, and these are things that pro gamers absolutely keep track of. It's been a long time that I was very competitive BO, but if there was ever somebody that beat me 3 times in a row in Warcraft 3, oh, I would know loading into game 4, and especially when it's this recent. And even if you feel like, okay, every game has had a story so far, eventually that doesn't matter anymore, right? You just need to get a freaking W.
Yeah, and by the way, it's interesting. We see Cham go for a 15-15. What I learned today is that because Amphion is it's not that short, rush distance wise, but because of the mineral layout, you actually mine a little bit less. So even if you go 15-15, if the probe goes an immediate scout across the map, they can still block your natural. Didn't happen this game, but you know, I guess as that information starts to percolate through a little bit more, I'm not going to be surprised if we start to see Protoss players try to take advantage of that, because it generally going 15 gas cancel, that should get you your natural on your natural if that's the corner you're going to cut to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. I'll keep an eye on it. Maybe if I see it next time, I'll think of you, Bio.
Well, you can thank Rainer for that. He was talking about it at the GSL this morning. So if I'm wrong, it's Rainer's fault.
Rainer is just fuming over everything the Protoss players can get away with.
They're allowed to win games, Roddy. That is not allowed. The world is not happy. We cannot be safe as StarCraft fans until Protoss literally has a 0% win rate.
Yeah, they've been doing all right, though. I mean, no GSL spoilers, but I feel like across the board, all 3 regions and slightly different skill levels as well, I do think you can really see that the Protoss performances are picking up across the board.
Oh, yeah. And we're getting fun games, too, like game number 1. Now, if I'm Trigger, though, and I look back at that game, yeah, I'm upset because I got a lot of damage done, and, you know, I've still got shoved in anyways. But I think if I'm trying to learn from that as well. It's like, look, he was set up to defend everything Cham was doing. I think you just have to have a better understanding of where your opponent's going to go. I mean, that all really goes back to kind of a rough Sim City. If you wall that out better, maybe, or you don't try to wall off at all and build your gateways elsewhere. Sorry?
Sorry, mate, but that's a very quick lair.
Yes, that is a very quick lair. I'm sitting here talking about, like, how would we go to the mid game? But Cham says, no, this was a 27, however long this game was. I don't want game 2 to go this long.
Queen Link drone. I mean, circling speed is going to take a little while, so I don't even know if that's what it is. I'm kind of curious what Cham does. We know that this is a great map for swarm hosts, but I feel like this is not a swarm host setup so far. We have an Oracle that's going to activate Pulsar Beam. But yeah, you're obviously spot on with everything you said. The SimCity worked against Trigger a little bit, but I think one thing we mentioned very briefly, but there were so many things to talk about during that fight, is that Trigger was just floating a little too much money, right, during that entire battle. And there was one High Templar that was in range of all the Hydras, could have dropped the devastating storm, and it didn't. It's just a few things adding up then, right? The SimCity maybe not being as perfect as you thought it was going to be. Then you miss a storm that you could have landed. Then you're not spending your money properly. And all of a sudden, the roaches and hydras look as good as they did in 2010 and 2011.
Yeah, so for now, as Oracle dives in, right, gets vision of everything, Trigger knows that there's a lair done. So he has solid understanding. He's got a Forge, Twilight on the way. We're going to see +1, Blink. And I guess, okay, it's going to be a Swarm Host play. This feels weird, though. He committed to a lair so quickly, and then the infestation pit goes down like 30 seconds after the lair is done. I don't know if he's trying to hide this from the oracles, and that's why he's delaying it, but it does feel weird. And Trigger, +1 in charge on the way. If this is Swarm Hosts, depending on how this time works out, this can either be really good, you hit when the Swarm Hosts are spawning and you kill everything, or, well, then it's a bunch of Zealots against Swarm Hosts. And what exactly, how does that one work?
This really all comes down to who's going to outposition who and who's got a better read on where they need to be. I kind of wish that Trigger would continue building oracles, and maybe you start building void rays now. I'm never a fan of the random void rays, but if you're playing against a 2-base Zerg that just desperately needs to get damage done against you, then I think the random void ray on patrol to keep track of potential Niduses or delaying a hatchery, putting some pressure on Swarmos is not bad. I also think just continuing to build oracles would be fine. This is gonna get very hectic because Trigger thinks that he's hiding something, but the Cham is also hiding something, and Cham has somehow, even though there are 2 oracles, keep on flying in range and realize there are no spore crawlers here. Cham has done a pretty good job in hiding stuff. This is gonna get wild, man. I feel like they can both deal so much damage to the other person.
I really like what Trigger's doing here as well. He's kind of realized that, okay, there's a problem. He's going to try to abuse this position to put Swarm Host on the other side of the mineral wall and make something happen. And so he's trying to mine it out, but he's also considering running across the map here, making this really weird. So for now, a bunch of Swarm Hosts into the main base. There is no shield battery here, nothing to make sure. This Nexus is dead, Roddy. That's step 1. Cham, he's killed the Nexus. Question is, though, there's a big attack from Trigger on the other side. Can he defend against this?
Well, you can really see that Trigger is kind of losing track of things because he's got a single High Templar there that cannot even morph into an Archon. Actually, there's another High Templar trailing, but Trigger does not want to give Cham any time. He says, this is it, Zealots with +1, 1 Archon. He should really make that a second Archon because that could make the difference. Cham has also lost a bunch of units. There's a War Prism that's just casually going to siege in the middle of all these bases, but the Roaches, especially on creep, are pretty damn good against Zealots. And this is exactly what we thought was going to happen. They both have potential to deal so much damage to the other guy. This is NA Gaming, man. We have now an Immortal that is being rallied into Locusts and Roaches. There are no Spore Crawlers. Trigger lost his main. Cham lost 21 drones. And look at the main base of Cham. 2 Archons and a War Prism. What is happening, Bio?
Yeah, here's the problem, though. Yes, Trigger lost his main base. He's not rebuilding it. So even though now it's on the way, I was going to say, even though Cham, he's lost a lot of drones. He's on 3 hatch. He can rebuild that one. And second problem, it's 16 army supply for Trigger. I don't know how you fight this number of Roaches and Archons. I think this might be a dead natural. Locusts are a little bit desync. I think this might just be a dead natural, though.
Yep. Well, the Archons can maybe force the Locusts to pay attention to the Archons for a split second. Locusts doing their thing. Hey, it's not a dead natural. There's a lot of potential for War Prism arrest because 0 Spore Crawlers and 2 Queens. So normally this is incredibly difficult for Cham not to take any damage off. 3 Zealots running into the natural as well while Cham is focused on that Archon drop. It's the 3 Zealots that once more knock Cham down all the way to 18 workers. So Cham is the one with the army and the army supply. Trigger is the one with the workers and the potential to deal even more economic damage. This game is just bananas. What are we watching?
Dude, this series is delivering in a way that is fantastic. Now, I think the main Nexus is dead once again. The Swarm hosts are going to get right on top of that. Although they're not target firing. So this actually, the Nexus should...
And it will live.
I don't know that it survives the second wave, but the first wave, it's still here. And now Trigger should be able to develop his economy again. Warp in...
Oh, Warp Prism. Warp Prism is in range of a queen. Top left side. Ooh. That could have been game ending. And now it's actually Cham who's using Locust here to prevent Trigger from mining out those minerals because he wants to keep his Warp Prisms safe. Yeah, since Trigger just used recall on that Warp Prism, he can now maybe just pick up 2 Archons, drop them on top of the Swarmos, or at least force Cham to use the Locust where he doesn't really want to use them. Like this, okay, he gets 3 or 4 workers. It's nowhere near as bad as losing an entire Nexus. This is the game of the day so far, BO. We are 10 minutes in, and it's a 37 probes against 30 drones.
Yeah, you know, I think yesterday, or not yesterday, game 1 also kind of had a chance to be called a game of the day as well. Why is Trigger still committing into this to try to get this base? It's like, go take the low ground base, Trigger. Your opponent's attacking through this side.
He's not trying to take the base. He just wants to open up the path so he can get on top of the Swarmos.
That's fair, yeah. And well, he's gonna get away with it now. Archon's body blocking things. These Swarm hosts are dead. They're in the ground. At least most of them should die. More Roaches, Ravagers. Biles are pretty nice. Locust on top of things. A lot of these Zealots theoretically in trouble, but nah, not with this number of Roaches here. The Locusts are done. This is 5 Archons, and even if 2 of them have very few shields remaining, this is finally Trigger running through. The all-in from Cham was very scary. But at this point, the Archons and the Zealots feels like they might be just a little bit too much.
Yeah, Roach numbers have gone up a little bit, but every single Swarmos is getting chased down by them Zealots, and the 4 Archons are still going strong. Splash damage all over these Roaches, and just like that, Trigger ties things up. What a game. Absolute clown fiesta, where it really did feel that they were both swinging for the fences, trying to knock the other guy out. 0 defense, all offense. Man, that triple Zealot run by the way, by Trigger, I think that was the tipping point. Because Cham, even if he was all the way down to 21 drones, he started to rebuild real quick. And you mentioned it, triple hatch. So, and actually a pretty doable setup to crank out a lot of workers. Then he was following that Prism and the 3 Zealots slicing up 10 workers again. That was insane. Awesome game.
You know, Rowdy, I don't often bring the nose out, but this series this is a full clown fiesta, and I am here for it. What is it that Trigger does? This last season, we saw Trigger against Estrella go and he proxied a pylon in his opponent's main base, got like 2 gateways up, and then it didn't work out. And then Estrella
El
proxied...
Sione, right? Was it the El Sione
no,
game
it
that
was
you're thinking
on
of?
Old map. King something.
I don't remember.
Same tile set as like Crimson Court is now.
Okay.
I'm so bad.
I'm very bad with map names made of previous patch.
But anyway,
out of sight, out of heart, out of mind, I do not remember a map name for the life of me. Besides the all-time goats, you know, King Sejong Station, Golden Wall, Abyssal Reef, 2K Atmosphere. Those I'll remember, but that's about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. It's like, you know, I don't really know what... You do them, you play a ton of games on them, and you kind of forget them immediately. Apparently, my mind only has space for 9 names. I don't know. Anyways, we have...
What a game.
Yeah, we have another game. We're going to get into it.
I'm just smiling, B. I'm just happy. We wanted some fireworks. We wanted some unpredictable games. And so far, the first 2 games of this best of 5. Absolute chaos, the way we love it. We saved the best for last. In the top left side, probably lost a couple of years of his life expectancy with that game, because going down 0-2 would have obviously been terrifying. But instead, he has managed to tie things up as a 1-base Protoss for a little while with Archons and Zealots. This is Basilisk Trigger.
And you know, I'm excited to see these both players showing up at LAN, because I'm pretty sure they're both rocking some white hair. But anyways, in the bottom right, in the blue, it's Cham.
Not sure if these two bring out the very best in each other or the very worst, but I am all for it, and I am so happy to just be a spectator to this fiasco.
You know, Roddy, I think the answer is yes. Not neither or, it's both. It's the best and the worst.
Let's hope that this was only the appetizer so far, and we get a little more of that. What I do always love about Cham is that even if we don't get to see him a whole lot, and we don't know what kind of shape he's in coming into the series or a season of the WTL Code S, he always strikes me as a guy who properly thinks about the games that he's about to play. He sees the maps, he knows what he wants to veto, he kind of goes with the order and he says, all right, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that. Not like a lot of other Zergs, where it's all about fundamentals, focus on spreading creep, injecting, have a good defense, take the game from there. No, it just kind of feels that Cham plays Zerg the way that he wants to play Zerg. This is it. This is my strategy, and we'll see what you do, but I am bringing this to you. And that's actually pretty hard to play against as a Protoss, because you're like, wait a minute, man, you're not doing any of the things that you're quote-unquote supposed to do. And that makes it pretty hard, especially in a high-pressure situation like the America ESL Master Playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of funny you talk about this in terms of, well, okay, Dark doing things that Dark does. Well, it's getting set up here. Like I talked about this in game one. Like Cham is kind of a Dark guy. He likes his roaches and things like that. But the other way we describe Dark is this guy that is able to go and not maybe be the most fundamentally sound, but play the game to win the game, to see that path to victory that may or may not exist and lean right into it. So, I mean, you're describing Cham as just a mini Dark, which I think makes sense because that is how we've described Cham for quite a while. For now, though, the game is going to be pretty standard. Once again, Stargate opener from Trigger. Cham has to take the natural at the third base. But Roddy, even if the game is going standard, one thing that this series has proven is that it's going to get wild. It's going to get weird pretty quickly. Nice trap there on the Adept. He's only going to get one drone, but even still, it's a scout of everything as well. And I said, you know, it's going to be standard. It's the Phoenix first.
Yeah, I mean, nice trap, but I also, the critic in me feels that was just a bad shade to let's finish up by Trigger. Like this Adept, I mind less, even though he didn't really get what he was looking for. He still forced a couple of the drones to morph into sport crawlers and whatnot. But the first one was just a little bit sloppy. Like, there's not a whole lot happening. If you want to let a shade finish up deep in the main base of the Zerg, I think that's completely fine. But then it needs to be either between mineral patches or behind the mineral patches, right? Not in the middle of the mineral line with two Zerglings, a queen, and drones surrounding that single Adept. That's just a little bit silly.
Yeah, that's fair. By the way, you know, sitting here looking at this Phoenix open, I was like, oh man, this is weird. We don't see this all that often. Historically, you'd open Phoenix double Oracle, dive in, lift a queen, and Oracles kill things, but that wasn't an era where you get like one queen per base and like one creep queen. So you're looking at 4 queens on the map, not like 6 or 7 at this time period. But the Phoenix has killed 2 Overlords. That's actually a really nice bit of damage, especially as he didn't commit to a Void Ray for it. But there's a second Phoenix on the map here, Roddy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see this at all. It's so rare.
Maybe his plan is just to lift queens because Cham likes to skip spores. Maybe that Polish gambit that Rainer was talking about earlier today. But yeah, I'm with you. This is very weird. Also very greedy, by the way that Trigger played it, because he just made a single Oracle. Then he went up to 3 bases. He now drops the second Stargate. This does bring me back a little bit to a series that you may or may not have watched as well. But a couple months ago, we had a very big series between Trigger and Cham, and it was the final best of 5 of the IEM Katowice qualifier. And that's a massive one, right? Because the winner would get sent to Poland, guaranteed $2,500, and it all came down to a single best of 5 between Trigger and Cham. And on the final map, Trigger actually got Cham with a double Stargate build, where I believe he opened up with Carrier, so a little bit different than this. But it does seem to be something that Trigger really believes in against Cham when it's for all the marbles, when the stakes are the highest. He did it back then in that IEM Katowice best of 5, and he's doing something somewhat similar right here as well.
You know what I love about this as well? So first of all, Adept Glaive going in getting, or Adept Shade going in getting like 5 workers is fantastic. But he's making this look like this is a single Phoenix into Oracle. He's got the Phoenix on the map still poking around. The rest of the Phoenix are hidden back together. So it's one of those things where Cham's going to look at this, and even though there's a Phoenix that's been shown, that may, the fact that he's playing double Stargate Phoenix may not necessarily be the read. Although as I say that, Cham's double expanding. We're just going to see he's pumping a ton of drones, and this is how you want to deal with a mass Phoenix play. Because what it means is like, well, you know, Phoenix are great. They can kill a lot of workers. They can kill Overlords. One thing they don't do, Roddy, they don't kill buildings.
Wow.
Right?
It's actually a really It's actually a really sick read by Cham because he even canceled his roach one. He had the roach one on the way. And I was like, if I'm Cham and I see this, I would be thinking that Trigger may be like hiding 8-gate Zelda +1 or something. But he knew exactly what was up. I think even before these Phoenixes have truly revealed themselves, cancels the roach one, and he's going to drop the Hydra list then. I think there is a lot of potential in all these Phoenixes, but so far they didn't find all that much. And I think that's mostly because Cham was distracting Trigger with those links. The links may not have found a lot of damage, but they did distract him. Trigger may be forced to drop a Robo Bay, right? Almost immediately. Because he's got the double Robo. And I would say get a Robo Bay, try to get a couple of Colossus out. If he gets Colossus out, I think he's flying. If he does not, then Mass Hydra will still be a bit scary.
So Roddy, today I learned that you can lift eggs as they're as they're morphing, which is pretty cool. Anyways, more queens are going to go down, more drones are going to go down here. And this is where it gets a little scary, even as we talked about Cham getting himself set up right with extra bases and just running really hard. The other part of dealing with this mass Phoenix play is you effectively want to get one spore per base or as many spores per base as there are Stargates. That's kind of how the math goes. It obviously varies a little bit depending on game state. But Cham has one spore on the map, so that allowed Trigger to go dive on top, kill off a couple queens, get a bunch of hydras, get more drones, and yeah, you know, he did lose a Phoenix or two for it, but yeah, you're kind of okay without a lot of, I mean, getting hydras on the edge are really nice. Without the spores here, you either just need to have critical massive. He keeps lifting these larvae. I didn't even know you could do that. But without the hydra, without the spores there, the hydras have to be in kind of one critical clump. Otherwise, they get picked off. They get taken down, and it becomes really hard to hit this timing that Cham really wants to hit.
Yes, but he already kind of passed that stage, right? Because once you get the first 10 Hydras out, you're fine. Hydras and queens together. Trigger, I feel like, had time to drop a Robo Bay. That's why I mentioned the Robo Bay, maybe for some Colossus. Decides against it and has dropped the Twilight Council instead. So right now we're looking at a 3-base Protoss that went a double Stargate, a double Robo. Is now also dropping a Twilight Council to get a Templar Archives. I mean, if he survives the first attack, he's flying. But that first attack is honestly going to be pretty difficult to hold. He's got cannons, he's got batteries, he's got some force field. Oh, these Hydras are so slow, by the way. They don't even have Hydra speed.
Yeah, well, the Zealots are really slow too, so it doesn't really matter either way. Man, imagine, I guess you need a Twilight for Storm, but we're going to have Templar Archives done soon. And the killer move that we just saw Trigger do to stay alive in this game, he finds like 5 Overlords. He knocks them all down. Cham had a ton of Overlords on the way, absolutely. But Cham could not reinforce into that. He had one army. He was going to attack into it. Phoenix have to be careful. But as long as he didn't really have this ability to reinforce, it's always scary to attack, especially without any sort of Hydra movement speed. So Trigger, by a lot of posturing, a lot of scariness, and heavily supply blocking Cham, is able to survive that first scariest wave.
Yeah, I also think we have to give a tiny shout out to the 17 cannons and 5 shield batteries that he's got there. So Cham was like, all right, let me just go ahead and attack. You can't have that many units, right? If you made all these Phoenixes. And Trigger's like, no, I don't have too many, but what I do have is a lot of cannons and batteries. And then Cham was like, all right, well, then I'm going to go back. And I'm going to go for Banelings. That takes a little while before those Banelings kick in, especially waiting for Baneling speed. I mean, it's all just going to take forever. And while Trigger earlier just had a few Immortals, basic Gateway units, and Phoenixes, he's now going to have those High Templars with Storm. Now, walking away from all the cannons might be a tiny bit risky, but he's got so many freaking Immortals. It's going to be difficult for Cham to find a great fight, but that's what we also thought on Golden Aura.
Yeah, for now, though, Force Field's not the best, but they do buy time. I wonder if Trigger's intentionally leaving these gaps for Storms, or whether this is just, missing Force Fields a little bit. But for now, first hit from Cham gets just that Archon probably doesn't want to go down there. But I was going to say, for now, the first hit doesn't really get a lot done. Phoenix dive in once again. And this is just a lot of dead drones. Yes, they will eventually die to the Spore. They're starting to get pretty low, but you don't really care about the Phoenix as much in this game state anymore. And curtailing this economy of this 5-base Zerg down to, well, actually back up to 80 workers, but down to 68 workers briefly is a pretty solid idea.
That was not really the best way, as we're gonna potentially get surrounded here on the side of Trigger. Cham left a lot of Hydras and Banes in the bottom side of our screen, but it's just too many Immortals to get on top of, man. Maybe if Trigger ever runs out of Storm, that's the opening that the Banelings and the Hydras look for. The nice thing about Banelings is he can activate all these barriers at once, and Trigger, who spent a fortune on all these cannons and batteries, is actually taking the fight away from them. Cham says, thank you so much, man, because I was never going to attack into all of that. I guess Trigger just feels that it's really time for him to go up to 4 bases. Not the best fight there for Trigger. And what I wanted to mention before that fight happened is that it also wasn't the best way to use Phoenixes, right? If you have 6 Phoenix, you don't use 5 of them to lift drones because then you only have 1 Phoenix attacking drones. If he would have just lifted 1 or 2 drones at a time there, I think he kills everything without losing a single Phoenix. It is just once more becoming very messy and very sloppy, and it felt that Cham was dead, but he just takes a great fight with the Hydra, Lings, and Banes, and now we've got a game again.
Roddy, I'm not complaining. Regardless of what happens, you know, if the game is standard, it's not standard. Nice cancel there on the Banes. Regardless of what's happening, it doesn't matter. The game's gonna go into a weird direction where players are uncomfortable playing games. They don't play all that often. And you asked earlier this. Oh, nice lift there on the Hydra. He built more Phoenix, I think. Maybe they just all went. Maybe they just didn't all go down. I don't know. But these players are so good at making their opponents play in incredibly sloppy manners because they're putting so much pressure on the map. Yeah, you're right, Roddy. This is the best and worst of Trigger and Cham, and I am here for it. These games are insane.
No cheating, by the way, Bio, and Mapu, don't bring it up. How many Nexi do you think Trigger lost in this game?
3.
Yeah. So many.
I got it.
I can't believe that he lost 3.
And they've all been the 4th base, I think. I don't think he never lost the 3rd, right?
But it's no way it's been up 3 times.
No, I think there are 3 failed cancels.
Yeah. I was like, has it ever been up? That's pretty crazy, by the way. That 3 Nexi in a row did not get cancelled, but okay. Cham is a greater, or is a Hive attack Zergy now. Could potentially make his way down to Great Aspire once more. Trigger does still have a powerful army. We saw what he's capable of with this powerful army on Golden Aura. Then maybe the upgrades were slightly better because he had +3 on the Immortals, Archon, Stalker, etc. We don't even have Blink, by the way, this game. That's worth keeping an eye on because of the weird start that we've had so far as Warp Prism dives into the main. Couple Zealots hopped out of it inside of the natural. Tiny Warp in, but I don't think that's enough for Trigger. Oh my goodness, the Phoenixes! He had so many. Now he's got 1 as they were just chilling above creep. We have a Zealot attacking the hatch in the bottom left side. BL, what is happening between these two? I mean, the Great Aspire, you loved it on Golden Aura. You gotta absolutely love it here, though, right? With all the Phoenixes going down and Stalkers not even having Blink.
Oh, Roddy, you said I loved it on Golden Aura. Don't put those words in my mouth. We're gonna have a bunch of Zerg players mad at me. But no, I think it was a solid setup given the state here. And you're right, in the same situation, there's no Blink. There is no Hail Mary solution to the Broodlords that are gonna happen. And I was looking at this, and I'm like, okay, Trigger's moving on the map right now. He's got equal, if not better army supply. He's got this really powerful army. Is there a world where he catches Cham in transition and goes and kills him? But he lost the Warp Prism, and that meant that all of a sudden you can't really attack. You didn't get a lot of chaos, but he's just gonna run. Okay, we got a base raid on the way, straight up the gullet into the natural. Lings and Banes and Hydras on the other side of the map, looking to shut down as much static defense as possible. Broodlords are not ready yet. Corruptors are on the way. Broodlords are now starting to get made. The natural is done. Is there a world? Where are these Broodlords? Right, that's the question, right? Where are they morphing in a corner? There's no world. Trigger jumps on top of them. 6 Broodlords will exist. The 3rd base of Trigger's dead. He's got a recall to get the 4th base down with the tree, keep some of it alive. He just recalls a bunch of Immortals, and with Shield Battery Overcharge, that's gonna be fine. In fact, the 3rd base hasn't even died yet. If Trigger just gets time for Blink, he's actually building Phoenix against Broods. I just get Voids, right?
Yeah, Void Rays would be good, but Void Rays are more expensive, and he probably feels that he just needs some anti-air. Look, there is 1 hero Phoenix right now that's going to start chipping away at these Broodlords. And it may seem silly, but that's still damage. Now you've got a couple Storms as well. Where are the Hydras of Cham? This is where you would really love to get a couple Hydras. And Trigger already used recall, so he couldn't even recall this army. Phoenix gets the first kill, and it could very well get more, as we now have Archons, Immortals, Zealots running on top of that base in the bottom left side. That Phoenix is putting in God's work. 2nd Broodlord will go down. I think the base trade was a poor choice by Cham, because Trigger still had all those cannons and batteries of the early game. 3rd Broodlord is gonna go... Nah, that one will live. Trigger just got himself in a very, very good spot.
This one Archon, this hero Archon, knocking down the Spire as well, so we're not going to have that many more Broodlords at the end of the day. Cham panic enough that he's got a single Muta on the map, and he is dead. Roddy, be real with me. because I know you're Basilisk and I know Trigger's Basilisk. Did you give this build to Trigger for today?
Absolutely not. No. I love it, and I think it's cool, and I feel like it had potential, and we cannot ignore the fact that it got him in a very good position. He just took a rather poor fight with all those immortals, and he didn't have too many storms, I guess, and maybe that's the problem, right? The combination of pure Hydra Bane is actually pretty good against immortals. While we often joke that immortals live forever, they survive everything. They can A-move Lurkers. They absolutely can. But the nice thing about Banelings is that if one or two Banelings connect with a clump of immortals, you see all these barriers activate. And once the barriers are down, that's when Hydras can kind of shine. So yeah, Cham just took a really good fight, got himself in a good spot. But it's a shame that he committed to that base trade in the end. He had more bases. He had a great Aspire on the way. He had Broodlords coming online soon. And then he base trades with Hydra Link Bane against Mass Immortal, Archon, High Templar. There were so many cannons and batteries of the early game. Like, that just wasn't the play for Cham.
I think the play was okay. I don't think he wanted a base trade. I think what he wanted was just to force Trigger back just enough to get the Broodlords out, because Trigger was on his doorstep and the Greater Spire was like 75% done.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you can't fight then. You're gonna lose a lot. Hydraling Bane into that army is rough. It's with that number of Archons and Storms, it really does struggle. So you run across, you say, look, oh, go back home, go defend, and then I'm gonna have 10 Broods out, and then it's a lot harder for you to fight. I guess is the idea. Regardless, Trigger's now up 2-1 in this series off of what has been absolutely the best game of the day. So Rotterdam, what do you say? We're gonna get into game 4. That sounds like a good idea.
Side delta it is for game 4 between these two. In the bottom right side, we are looking at the main base of the man who got a 2-0 victory over his opponent last Sunday. Took the 1-0 lead, was so close to taking a 2-0 lead. Is now instead down 1-2. Can we send it to this game that this series absolutely deserves? And that's, of course, game 5. Starlight Twinkles, Cham.
In the upper right, he may have lost 4 maps in a row to his opponent, but now trying to win 3 straight. Move on to the round of 4 in the upper bracket. For Basilisk, it's Trigger.
One thing I want to say though about that previous game is I absolutely get what you're saying when you say like, oh, it's so many Immortals, Archons, and Cham didn't really want to take that fight, but there was creep everywhere. And I have the feeling that if you set up a bit of a nice engagement with Hydras, Lynx, Banes on creep, you can at least scare Trigger enough that I think Trigger will go back himself. Because no matter how good and cool your Protoss army is, you don't want to get surrounded on creep.
Yeah, that is always fair. But there's also I don't know how many sentries Trigger had at the end of that fight. But the other thing is like, well, you get surrounded on creep, but Oceanborn has some positions attacking through the natural or attacking up the ramp into the natural or going a little bit further forward where you can wall off a lot of areas with a bunch of force fields, take the fight piecemeal. Hydraling Bane doesn't have any Ravagers, so there is no solution to the force fields. And I don't know how many sentries he had, but the other way to look at that is you go that late into a game, you have 10 Archons, you can put Archons in a wall, and they're as good as a force. They're better than a force field. They fight back.
Yeah, I guess we've had probably a million if, buts, and maybe scenarios so far with the 3 games we've seen between these two. Once more, we're gonna kick things off with a Stargate. This is that map, by the way, back then where Trigger got that Game 5 victory over Cham, secure his ticket to Poland to play in the IEM Katowice earlier this year. Wouldn't be surprised to see him bring it out once more. That one Stargate into Fleet Beacon, into a second Stargate. I have the feeling that Cham is not mega good against those builds. He is a man of extreme, so he is willing to suddenly just cut a bunch of corners and then shove a million Hydras or something down your throat on the other side of the map. But it's so risky. And Hydras, they need their upgrades, right? Without both of the upgrades, we saw it last game. Slow Hydras off creep just looks kind of sad.
That it doesn't, man. Cham already making a couple mistakes here as well. He had to go cancel his gas on the natural just because he was supply blocked. Just get a couple more drones out, and I don't know how much of a difference that made because I think the Overlord finished fairly quickly, but you look at things, and again, Cham maybe a little bit sloppy, looking for that path to victory. And the further this game goes, you talk about Stargate, Fleet Beacon Stargate. I mean, Roddy, you made me really excited. Double Tempest stuff is always pretty cool. Regardless, though, Trigger seems to have definitely warmed up into this series. Yeah, you know, game one was kind of rough, but he almost made the comeback happen. And ever since then, even if the games have been sloppy, they've been sloppier in Trigger's favor more than they've been sloppy against Trigger, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but with how close they became, I don't know if we can really say that he was ever like in control. He had his moments for sure, but Cham has absolutely had his moments as well. So far, this is all very standard, though. We have a third Oracle on the way. I think Trigger is pretty happy with how this has gone. Sure, lost one adept, but he forced drones to run around 24/7. Got a couple links, got a single drone kill. Oracle still healthy, and a very quick third base himself. Cham was also supply boxed for a little bit when he was 44 out of 44. Overall, it already give Trigger the lead, and Trigger is looking to extend that lead with excellent Oracle movement here.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing a really nice job. 4 workers go down. Although Roddy, you know, even as I say, look, he's getting a lot of damage done early. He feels maybe just a little, every game has been really weird, but he feels just a little bit crisper every single game. Sure. We're kind of in a setup as we were in game one, right? Oracle's getting damage done, Adept's getting damage done, moving around the map, doing everything that he wants. And then Cham ran across the map and killed him in a way that we didn't really expect. So again, we've seen this series. Well, we talked about being clean. Didn't lose an Oracle in game one.
No, you know, the funny thing is that Cham is doing this with 0 spore crawlers. Cham's got 7 queens, 2 zerglings, 0 spores against triple Oracle, and it's actually kind of working. Who needs spores if you can just build nothing but queens? This is probably one of these moments where if Trigger would have made some of these basic adepts and shaded those to the other side of the map as well, he'd be flying. Cham is going to go for +1 melee, and he drops the Spire almost in vision of that Oracle, but not quite. So Oracles haven't seen it yet. And now we can't ignore the fact that Trigger also lost one of his Oracles, which makes it a little bit harder to maybe scout a Spire in the main that just feels like it's surrounded by a circle ring of queens.
Yeah, and if you want to go really next level, you put a bunch of Overlords on top of it, start to poop creep down. It's like, oh, what's under there? You probably know it's probably a Spire. The tech's been getting done enough at this point. But I really like this from Cham. Given how the games have been going, with how wild and crazy they are in base trading, you can either play a game where it kind of turns into that and you don't have a ton of control over what's happening, or okay, first of all, I didn't even notice this. Ling speed is only just now getting started. I didn't realize he had skipped it. Or you can play a style that is designed to go into the base trade. Mutaling or Ling Bei, or excuse me, Mutaling in PvZ, you're not really ever building an army that kills your opponent army head up. You're building into a base trade. You're keeping them on 3 bases. You're getting damage done, and you're picking these stalkers off time and time again. Problem is, Trigger's on the map right now. He's got a ton of stalkers. Blink is just about done as the mutas get ready. So this is the perfect timing from Trigger. Cham, Blink's gonna be done before Link speed.
Yep, Link speed is just so late. He is going to bring the Zorklings back, and it is going to finish up in the near future, but there is a stasis trap behind it. Playing Muta Ling is obviously always awkward if the economies are similar. If you're on even bases, it becomes even more awkward. Trigger is probably so confused. Like, maybe Cham was playing into his image a tiny bit, because he is the kind of Zerg. We need to Rico here, by the way. I don't know if Trigger can Rico. He doesn't. He's just going to blink back. Feels a little bit risky with this many Zerglings and Mutalisk on top of his army, but he still wants to just go ahead and take this fight. Off creep, I guess I like it a bit better for the Protoss than on creep, but he's bleeding out a lot of units, and he's down 24 army supply. Still full of confidence though, PO. Blinks forward.
I mean, it's Mutaling versus Stalkers. That was extremely, I guess, you're like, oh, he's gonna back up. I can get the queens. That's not really the case. Cham, though, you gotta be careful here. Even as you go and you're taking this solid trade, he's lost 8 mutas. You trade the Lings away fine. Once the mutas start to take damage, that's when you back up just a little bit. And Trigger, he senses opportunity here. He's leaning into this. This is crazy.
And another forward blink deep on creep. Is this gonna get it there? And we have a couple of slow zealots showing up as well, but I really am not feeling these forward blinks. This feels so bananas to me. Now there is +1 on these zealots, so that's gonna help out a little bit in dealing with some of these Zerglings. But Cham, in the middle of all these Zerg bases, should have reinforcements for days. Maybe the Mutas can just gun down that War Prism. That is exactly what I think the Mexican Zerg is gonna try to do. Well, he's just gonna wipe the floor with the army. Trigger, his forward blinks have been absolutely bananas. Some of them worked out, but I think we can safely say that that last one did not work out. Like that deep on creep in the middle of links, drones, mutas, that was just a bit too much.
I don't know a lot about how Trigger feels about mutas. I think most Protoss players, they're going to say, man, I hate mutas. It sucks to play against. I'm just pinned back at home. So I don't know how much of this is like, look, I just don't want to play a muta game. I don't have really the tech for it. I'm just going to try to lean in with stalkers. But every time this fight happens, the supply gap increases. There are more lings that are being made, more mutas that are being made. And you know, Roddy, there's a world where, well, queens are going down. Queens are at the front. There's not enough injects to make sure you can build enough lings, and maybe Trigger's trying to rely on taxing that one and maintaining momentum. But Cham's got 4 hatch. He's got a 5th base on the way soon enough. He's probably going to take the right side. And Trigger's starting to realize that there is no way he makes this work. But because he committed so much to it, how do you get a 4th base? How do you defend not with the mutaflock that's now starting to become so big, +1 melee lings as well? The moment Trigger steps off the gas here, he's going to have big problems at home.
I just think that Trigger did not think that Cham had 4 hatcheries there, so maybe he thought that Cham was very broke and tried to get mutas out from a very crappy economy, and he would run out of steam immediately. Because Trigger did obviously kill that hatchery at 3 o'clock, but he never scouted the one at the bottom side of the map. So maybe he just thought, even if these trades are not the best, you know, 3-base Protoss against 3-base Zerg, this is going to be fine. But it wasn't a 3-base Zerg, it was 4-base Zerg. The muta count is pretty insane at the moment. Battery overcharge has already ran out. The Stalkers are going to try to make the difference here. As long as the Zealots can keep the Stalkers safe, you always kind of believe in a lot of extra Stalkers that have been warped in, as they do have +1, but there are no more Zealots on the ground. There is no more shield battery to heal up these Stalkers. And we are going to get what we deserve watching these two battle. We're going to game 5 here.
What, man, you talk about mutilating, and it's like, oh, okay, base trades, playing around the edge. No. We're just going to win the army fight here. Cham takes us to game number 5. Roddy, we had 3-3-0s. You know, it happened. It's a thing. I'm so happy this is not a 3-0. This is certainly the series of the day. I don't know if it's the series of the playoffs. It's harder to say, but certainly this is...
Cham going for a 4-base lair with 7 queens, 2 zerglings, no zergling speed against a triple oracle opening. No spore crawlers against triple oracle. If Trigger would have done what he does very often in this matchup, where he makes 4 basic adepts, and he shades those 4 basic adepts to the other side of the map, he splits those up as well. It feels that he's guaranteed to get like 15 or 20 drones. Instead, he activates Pulse of Beam on 2 oracles. Cham has queens in a perfect spot, guns down 1 oracle, Trigger doesn't see the spire. And what I do love from Cham is that he built that roach one. We didn't even really mention it. Like, that roach one, I think, has 2 purposes. A, in case he needs it against a couple random zealots running to the other side of the map with charge +1. But what's also nice is that I think Cham was really playing into his image there. He is known to be that Zerg that skips the Zergling speed and then just hits you with a few more roaches than Zerg players normally have. And he attacks you with Dropper-Lords, Queens, Roaches, Ravages. And he's like, here's the Roach Warren. And Trigger clearly was thinking about that and wasn't thinking about mutas for a while.
It's funny you say that, because on the flip side, you know, hitting with a bunch of Link Stalkers on your +1 timing, like right as mutas are popping out, is a way to kill a Zerg. So, you know, I kind of attack. I like the attack regardless of what happens. But now, the final time, we're ready in this madness of a series to get into game number 5. Alcyone is the map. Let's do it one more time.
We got what we deserve. This man getting the job done with a 3-base lair opening, quick spire, late Zergling speed, +1 melee, all the good stuff that Zerg players love. It is our Mexican crazy Zerg, Cham.
And the bottom left here, takes 2 to tango, and this man certainly at least doing a foxtrot. The bottom left in the red is Trigger.
What a series. What a fun ending to our broadcast video. I'm so happy. I feel like, you know, it's not just that the fans deserve that. I feel like we deserved it.
You know, we've been toiling away. We are, what are we? 8 hours into this broadcast, and well, we deserve at least one just nut madhouse of a series, and that is exactly what is happening. But as we get into game 5, Roddy, it's Alcyone. That is, I was going to say it's a standard map, but you have the gold that we see a lot of Zerg players go for. And you know, I'm kind of happy that Cham didn't, because if you go for the gold, generally the game ends within 10 minutes, one way or the other. There's a big timing that happens, as we saw in Scarlet Nina, or the Protoss is able to punish it and the Zerg dies. By playing a more standard game, it means that we give ourselves like 5-7 more minutes for the madness just to brew and percolate. So when it erupts, well, it'll be that much spicier. That's what I believe.
I hope you're right, mate. I hope you're right, and perhaps you are right, because this series so far, 10 out of 10. It's not been the prettiest StarCraft. We've seen some very silly moves, obviously, coming out of both parties. But perfect StarCraft can be a bit boring. I would say this is my kind of StarCraft, especially, you know, if it's late on the Thursday night, it is midnight for the Europeans. That's where you tend to get a bit silly in your own games as well, if you somehow still find yourself lathering. And it's really fun to watch these two guys play. There is always a chance they'll meet each other again way down the line, but the NA playoffs are stacked. A lot of great players. This is probably the only time that we'll see Trigger and Cham duke it out. Whew, these two are just such a good match for each other. I can't get enough of it. I think back of that crazy best of 5 IEM Katowice qualifier, and last Sunday as well, where the games were a bit odd. Odd for different reasons. They were all in favor of Cham. This one has had it all. I do still think that if Trigger just sticks to his fundamentals and believes in his openings that he's practiced right, when it comes down to some Oracle movement, great scouting, he should be fine. If he ever gets to be a 4-base Protoss with Immortals, Archon, Storm, he should be fine. Right, BO?
You know, Roddy, I'm done trying to make predictions or analysis of this series, because every time you think you know what's happening, something goes really wrong. But Roddy, is this the time you drop the fleet beacon? Is this the time you go? I mean, he did go Phoenix. There is that. This is already shades the game 3, kinda. We're gonna have to see where he goes from here.
And he did win that game 3 with the 3-base setup, double Stargate, double Robo, into Twilight Council, Templar Archives. Cham, by the way, making a lot of late. Well, just 10. Keep an eye on it. I never trust him. Whenever I see double digits on the production tab early on, it's like, this may be standard, but you never ever know with a player like Cham.
I love watching Cham as well, because I have so many CVP wins, because you find him doing like an open random cup, and he just debuts something oddball, like a really quick Evo +1 speed link timing off a Nidus or something like that. And you're like, oh, that seems kind of cool. And then you go and you win a lot of games before anyone figures it out. And he is so good at doing that. But for right now, Ling's on the other side of the map. Oracle shows herself, gets 3 workers, but it seems like another Oracle is going to pop out. And I wonder how much of this is, as this Adept is very exposed and will go down. Maybe? Yeah, it's going to go down, but it's going to trade every single... It doesn't go down. Okay, well, you know what? I said I wasn't going to try to predict things in this series anymore, and then I made a mistake, Roddy. I'm sorry.
Calculated. Trigger saw that coming from a mile away. It was safe behind that pylon near the mineral patches. He said, no, I'm going to move it out, because that will make Cham go for it. So he gets each and every single circling in the end. Can't ignore that Oracle that was casually zapping down some drones as well. So I'd say overall very good start for Trigger. Minus 18 links, minus 3 drones, and only 2 adepts have fallen. You got to be happy with that. Yeah, I'm gonna go with you as well. We can't make any predictions when these two play against each other, because they bring out the very best and very worst in each other. Here we have that one Phoenix lifting one of the queens, and Trigger is off to an absolutely fantastic start at this point, as the Oracles are going to town on these drones. Minus 6 once more. Don't forget, very good scout as well, right? Get to see literally everything there is to see in the natural. If we don't love this, if we're Trigger, will we ever love any start?
Well, Roddy, that's asking if I'll ever love again, and the answer is no. But
you're loving right now, Bia. What are you talking about? I hear you talk about your lovely lady all the time.
Anyways, yeah, but it's funny. but it's funny if I make myself sound depressed. I do love, by the way. So we talked about Cham. He ran across the map with the Lings, the Oracles, and everything handled that. I wonder how much of that was Trigger showing the exact same opening that we saw in Game 3 with Oracles and Phoenix. And it was a lot of Lings, and whereas a lot of Phoenix afterwards. And, you know, Roddy,
yeah,
Phoenix don't do anything to Lings. You lift one, not going to do anything. So that would have been a chance to go kill the 3rd base. I love how Trigger has has sold a story to Cham that is incorrect in this game number 5, and also read the book of Cham and found a new page. Not only did he go and say, Cham, maybe make a bunch of links here, I'm maybe going Phoenix, and that's a problem. On top of that, he's realized that we're seeing that Polish, whatever we called it, you know, the Polish gambit. So he dives in with no supports, their only single queen, gets a lot of damage done, and all this puts together to put Trigger in an incredible spot as he puts pressure on the 4th base. Stalkers, Blink is done, +1 is done, there's a Warp Prism that's now getting ready to move on the other side of the map. These Ravagers are just gonna get, not canceled, nice hot transfuse. But this turns into a really nice bit of tempo from Trigger. Now, supplies are starting to get higher, and with Queens and Roaches and Ravagers, it gets a little harder to push through. But I love the tempo that Trigger's been able to set.
Sick transfuse on the Cocoon a couple times there, keeping that Ravager or that morphing Roach alive forever. But yeah, Trigger is here. He's at the front door of Cham. The Stalkers have a lot of micro potential, especially in a spot like this, right on the edge of creep. Cham is counting down the seconds until he's got +1 missile attacks. That's going to make his entire army a little bit better. The supplies look scary for this Zerg, but maybe it's just barely enough to stabilize, right? That's basically step 1 is stabilize, and eventually Cham can start dreaming about just cranking out a lot of extra units. Still so many Stalkers as the Phoenix is going to chip in as well. Lifts and Ravager could do that again, by the way. Still so many freaking Protoss units at the front door of Cham, and Cham now feels urged to actually pull a couple of drones into the fight, but those drones die immediately as well. Is this just all Trigger in the final game of this epic best of 5?
Yeah, we've had 4 games of back and forth madness, mistakes, mischief, woe, but in game number 5, Trigger turns down and says, yeah, okay, I got Blink Stalkers. This is what's going to happen here. I'm going to blink on top of everything. You're just not going to survive. I'm going to tell you a story and hit you with a book instead. So the queens are dead. He dances his units. He says, no, you beat me in the WTL. It's not going to happen here.
Ooh.
Cham upset about that. Let's see if he can get revenge to the lower bracket. But Trigger for right now, he moves on to the round of 4 in the upper bracket.
Perhaps Misclick, very excited, you know, that he was just... yeah, I don't know. I mean...